Everybody knows a story, a good story, whether it be their own or one passed down over the years, whether it be true or a legendary work of fiction. Everybody loves a story.
It was just after midnight when it happened. 3 of them, masked, all dressed in black. Dragged me out of bed, put a hood over my head. Next thing I know, I'm in a van. I've never been more terrified in my life. We drove around for what seemed like hours. I only had pyjama bottoms on. I was cold. Really cold. Then we stopped. They dragged me out the van. I could feel mud under my feet as they frog marched me to the place I was going to spend the next 4 days. They put me in a room. It was a dark room. There's no light. No windows. Just these black walls. So black, my eyes wouldn't even adjust. And then 3 times a day, they come in with bread and water and a beating. Beatings. Each one just that little bit more sadistic than the last. I thought I was going to die. At times, I wish I was dead. I was struggling more and more every day. Couldn't think straight. I did realise one thing though. Life. It's a precious thing. Then without warning, a door opens. I'm beckoned out into what I can only describe as a plush office reception, where there's all these other people sitting round, obviously been through what I've just been through. And then there's people being dragged through with hoods on their head. I wanted to scream, I wanted to shout, but I didn't. Just smiled. I thought to myself, they're in it for the time of their life. So I paid me bill, went back to the wife and kids. Fantasy fulfilled. Would I do it again? Yeah, of course I would, but maybe only the 2-day option next time.
He was gorgeous. I couldn't wait to finish work just to get to the train station to catch a glimpse of him. Stephen. Well, he wasn't really called Stephen, but it's the name I used in my daydreams, and it was good enough for now. We had a thing, me and Stephen. We'd smile across at each other on the platform, and I just knew something was going to happen. It was bound to. Yeah. Oh, but I'd never make the first move. I'm old-fashioned like that. I'm a lady. He was tall, dark, handsome, but he was casual at the same time, not like all the other suits in the 533. No, he really stood out. Sometimes, when we were sat in a crowded carriage, I just wish everyone else away, just so it was me and him. Like that Tom Cruise film, where he makes love to Rebecca De Mornay on the train. Yes, please, I'd like to be Rebecca De Mornay. And then it just happened. I finished work late because Ferguson gave me extra paperwork, so I had to get the later train. So I got into the empty carriage, and then he got in. It was like slow motion as the train pulled away. I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is the moment we've both been waiting for. And then he came and sat near me. It was like, oh my God. And then he leant in, and he whispered something I will never, ever forget. Give me your purse or else. Bastard. It turns out his real name was Shanksy, and he was a criminal on the Northern Line. He went off with me gold bracelet and £30. Bastard. I can well and truly say, romance is dead.
I had everything I ever wanted when I was a kid. Scalextrics, TCR, Race and Chase. Enough Subbuteo to fill Wembley, enough Hornby track to fill Euston. I had Action Men, $16 Men, and Evel Knievel. I had the lot. Our house was full of the stuff. If it was new, I had it. Duplicate. Of course, with all this came friends. Lots of friends. I was the most popular kid in my class. Now, my parents, they weren't well off. I mean, far from it. I just had a dad who loved me. A dad who wanted his son to have everything he never had. He must have spent about, I don't know, 80% of his wages on me every month. Now, you're probably thinking, no kid could be loved that much. Well, it all started one Thursday. There was a flood at our school and we all got sent home. My parents were at work, well, so I thought. You know, I opened the door, threw my bag down and headed upstairs to film my Panini album. That's when I saw her, standing in the kitchen. I froze and stared at her through the banister spindles. Red stilettos, black fishnets and the shortest skirt I've ever seen. Now, I may have only been 9, but I knew what sexy was. And then she turned. Dad. That low-cut top did not hide his hairy chest. The rouge lipstick didn't match his moustache. It was horrific. I felt sick, disgusted. I screamed. He screamed. I raced upstairs before this hideous man-beast could get me. I lay on the bed and waited for the dust to settle. By the time Dad had plucked up the courage to face me, he was, I don't know, normal again. He told me he did it every Thursday and how it made him feel. I didn't understand. He begged me not to tell. He said Mum would leave him and our family would be destroyed. That's when the bribe started. I didn't care what he did. Yep. He was my dad, and I loved him. It's just that I loved Steve Austin more.
The idea that people think it's weird doesn't really bother me. It's not like I'm hurting anyone. It all started about 6 years ago. I was reading the obituaries in the local paper when I was drawn to one woman's name. Maria De Nova, 93 years of age, died peacefully in her sleep in the Rivermount nursing home. Why was I drawn to her? The amount of people who had paid their respects to that woman. The amount of space used to acknowledge that woman lived. 2 pages worth. I wanted to know her. I wanted to know her life. That was my first funeral. I was welcomed by everyone like family. They all treated me like I was a friend of a niece or something. It didn't really matter. What did matter was that I was welcomed by strangers, and I enjoyed every single minute of it. That was the beginning of my obsession. Every week, I would trawl through the papers looking for that special someone, that one recently deceased to leap out at me. They always did. John Grover, electrical engineer. Susan Wilkes, stay-at-home mum. Kevin Danes, teacher. Helen Tyler, nurse. That was just a few of the hundreds. I would join their friends and family to hear about lives, laugh, cry and pay my respects. I would sip tea with widows and cry with daughters. It sounds strange, I know. Weird even. But at least I added to the love of that person. One extra piece of support before they moved on. Why do I do it? What do I get from it? Hope. I get hope. When I leave this world, a few people like me might fill a room. I think I'd like that.
His name was Michael Critchley. He was a freak. Kids could be cruel with words like that. I was one of the cruel ones. Hey, if someone was different, then they were freakish. Critchley was a freak.
At school, we had groups, pockets of kids that used to hang around together. Always had to be 3 or more. 2 meant you were gay. Critchley was always on his own. He was different. He had something nobody else had. You want to know what it was? An extra limb. That's right, yeah. Critchley had an extra arm protruding straight out of his stomach. PE was hysterical. All these kids would stand around him in the gym, laughing at him. Critchley just stood there. After a while, we all got bored and headed for the ropes. But Critchley would just stand there with not one single flicker of emotion on his face. Free? Then one day that all changed. One dinner out, we all piled into the local sweet shop. 40 screaming kids all wanting chocolate and wham bars off a demented Mr. Cooper. Then Michael Critchley strolled in. Everyone stood aside in shock. He'd never been in the sweet shop before. This was new. Michael walked up to the counter, placed both hands down, and asked Mr. Cooper about the different varieties of midget gems on the counter behind him. He wanted to know all the varieties, prices, stock. Did he buy in bulk? This was all nonsense, of course. We all saw what was really going on. While he distracted Mr. Cooper, Critchley was piling loads of sweets from the counter below with his spare arm straight into his satchel. Michael thanked Mr. Cooper, turned and walked out. He had the biggest smile ever on his face. And from that moment on, things changed. Michael Critchley left the zone of free and became a legend.
I hated Alison Campbell with all my heart. I'd hated her since we were about 6. You see, Alison Campbell was always one step ahead of me. Better grades, better clothes, better boys. Alison Campbell always got in my way. If I scored 5 in netball, she scored 6. If I came second, she came first. Jesus, the only time I did actually win, it was a tie. I hate Alison Campbell. So when I was old enough, I decided to move away. Not that I was obsessed by the girl or anything. Okay, maybe just a little. I just wanted to get to a place where I had a clear run at things. I just wanted a fresh start where the odds weren't stacked against me. So I did. University, stunning grades, and a social life to die for. Then marriage, kids, and a great life. Then the perfect job came up back home. I had to go for it. Nothing was going to stand in my way. I had finally stepped out of the shadow of Alison Campbell once and for all and made something of myself. I sat in reception, waiting for my interview. And in she walked, looking gorgeous as usual, dripping in designer gear, and making that very large chip in her shoulder seem very light. I lost it! God, did I lose it? The decades rolled past as I leapt from my chair and I dived at the woman. I kicked, I scratched, I may have been bitten at one point. Oh God, the blood. So much blood. It felt great! Liberating even. If I wasn't going to get this job, neither was she. I'd finally made my mark in Alison Campbell's life once and for all, if not emotionally, physically. How was I to know she ran the company? How was I to know that? Luckily, she didn't press charges. It hurt, though. Lost the great job I had. Seems I have a reputation now. Seems like Alison Campbell. One again.
Everywhere I went, you were there. Town, park, the high street. Everywhere I went, you were there. But first I just put it down to coincidence. We obviously lived in the same area, drank in the same area, worked in the same area. Coincidence? Stuff like that can happen, can't it? But then it just started to get weird. Like, really weird. I went for a weekend away with my friend Maggie to the lakes. This little hotel, Grasmere. There he were, standing at the bar, drinking a pint of Theakston's Best. And then he had a heart attack. I grabbed Maggie and got the hell out of there. It started happening more frequently. I'd see him at least 10 times a day. At least. He'd just stop and stare at me. I'd freeze with fear. Was it death just waiting to take me? I was on the train one night coming home from a party. There he were up to the end of carriage, heading straight for me, at speed, pushing passengers out the way. This was it. This was my time. But then doors sprung open and I flew out of there like the speed of light. I've never been so scared. So it got to the point where I couldn't leave the house. I knew if I went out, he'd be there, waiting. Then there was a knock on the door. I opened it slowly and 2 policemen faced me. Apparently a guy named Jason Phillips had filed a complaint against me. I dropped me back on the train, you see, when I flew out. I was being classed as a stalker. I was treated like a criminal. Bastards. Got to be more careful next time. I've got to prepare more. They won't catch me again.
I hated everything about it. But this was my last night, so I was feeling a bit more comfortable. Richie insisted on these poker meetings every Thursday after a job. Called them his worn down nights. So we'd have a drink, game of poker, discuss what went right, what went wrong. Nothing ever went wrong. We were the best crew in the business. And the money. But it all gotten a bit too easy. You know, I started to lose the edge, the sharpness. I know Sandy was a factor. We'd been seeing each other for months, but you know, keeping it cloak and dagger was a nightmare. Which is another reason why I hated these nights. You know, I always felt like Richie knew something. He kept smiling at me, and Richie only smiled when he was about to hurt someone. And then he said it. Out the blue, calm as you like. Who is it? Which fucker's doing Sandy? My heart nearly exploded. I have never ever been that scared in my life. I knew what Richie was capable of. He said he knew it was someone around the table, one of the 5, and he gave us 60 seconds to own up to it, and whoever it was, he'd let them live. The lads all just stared at each other. Stared at me like they knew it was me too. It was the longest 60 seconds of my life. But Richie was a man of his word. I knew that if I stood up there and then and owned up to it, I'd live. Okay, I'd get the beating of a lifetime, but I would live. You know, I just felt like standing up and saying, look, Richie, me and Sandy were in love. We're just going to get off and start afresh. And then he started counting down. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. And then it happened. It was like a moment of divine intervention. The other lads all stood up. We don't have poker nights anymore. But the same with just me and Richie there.
He had a total inability to hit the bowl. It was that simple. Grounds for divorce. I'd had enough. I'd simply had enough. Every time I went to the loo, there was pee on the seat. Without fail. And I don't mean a little splash and a small trace. He'd missed completely. It's like he'd deliberately peed on the seat. The splashes and small traces were on the floor. Now, usually, I would just clean it up, have a moan to myself, maybe have a little rant that he would laugh off. But not this time. This time I flipped. I flipped big. I've never been so angry. We yelled at each other, and as most heated arguments unfold, many, many things came flooding out. The pee on the toilet seat was now a secondary feature. 6 years of marriage and we'd never had a blowout like that. That's when it happened. I got him so worked up that he actually threw a punch at me. A real punch. A manly punch. Obviously he missed by a country mile. He actually lost his own balance and fell on the floor. That's when we knew he had a problem. The condition is called ataxia, a total lack of coordination, something to do with his trunk. We're still together and the medication's helping a lot. I was told to be patient with him and his poor condition. I even set up safety measures around the home to make it easier for him. No clutter and wide walkways. I even removed the rug Mum bought from the hall to stop him slipping. Although I sometimes feel like putting it back. Sure, he still mucks up from time to time. But we did sort the toilet problem. He now just simply aims for the seat.
I was 37 when I first met my gran. 3 a.m. Wednesday morning, bottom of the bed. She was sat there with a huge smile on her face. I didn't flinch, as if he was just meant to be. Michael flinched. In fact, he nearly shit his pants. That's right. It wasn't one of them normal ghostly experiences you have on your own. Oh no, my husband was right there with me. My gran died 52 years ago. She's now 83. She looks bloody well, just like in the photographs. We talked for hours. We talked about Mum, Dad, the kids, what I'd been doing with my life. She looked like she was enjoying every minute of it. I know I was. Michael was a bit annoyed, of course, but it's not every night dead relative comes to visit. Plus, he had to be up early on the Thursday and had a bit of a bad night on the couch with a cat. So when morning broke, she said her goodbyes, walked into the ensuite, and was gone. We didn't tell anyone about the visit. Well, we didn't want bloody Derek Acora knocking on the frigging door, did we? It wasn't a terrifying experience. I thought it was quite special, really. Michael wanted to move, or get a priest involved. Every night I came home from bingo, I half expected to see Max Van Sydow stood at the top of the stairs. Oh, we laughed when Gran next came about Michael's reaction. Grandad was crying with laughter. Did I watching Grandad came the following week. Hard to keep track nowadays. The whole gang is here. Mum, Dad, Auntie Beryl. It's because of Auntie Beryl that Michael left me in the end. Didn't like her when she was alive.
It's me or the bear? I can't believe she asked me that. I can't believe she actually wanted me to choose between her and Barney. What a pickle. I'd had Barney since I was 3, for God's sake. Barney was family. We'd been through everything together. I tried to compromise with her. I backed down a lot of things. I tried, damn it. I even told her I wouldn't have him in bed with us. It didn't work. She wanted him gone completely. She simply couldn't understand how a man of my age still had a cuddly toy in his life. Well, he helped me. It's as simple as that. He helped me through the times I was invisible to the world. He helped me through the rows and the fights downstairs. Barney was always there to cling to and hug. Still is. He knew my every secret, for God's sake. I couldn't just throw him away for the sake of a relationship. She didn't understand. She took matters into her own hands. I came home from work and Barney was gone. Oh, I searched the house. I searched everywhere. I even checked the bins. Nothing. She came home just after me and I exploded. I screamed at her. I was upset, crying. She'd never seen me like this before. She was adamant she hadn't such a stupid bear. But I knew she thought Barney was a rival to her. That's when I grabbed her by the throat. I'd never been so angry, so furious. I wanted Barney back. And then she was gone. Lifeless. I just stared at her on the floor in front of me. I'd lost them both now. I felt empty inside. That was until I noticed Barney beneath the sideboard. Fantastic! Everything's going to be okay again. Just another secret to keep.
Everybody loves a story, well, a good story. Me, most of all. I could sit for hours and listen to all kinds of people telling all kinds of stories. Some I love more than others. That's why I like to keep those. But it's not just about the story being told. No, it's about the teller. And I like to keep them both. Locked away, so that I can simply open a door and listen anytime I choose. Like flicking through the pages of a book. Maybe you have a story. Maybe you'd like to tell me your story.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Electric, PCR, racing chase, studio from Wembley, all the track from Houston, action men, dollar men,
I want this.